Ink Ribbon.
The original Resident Evil was groundbreaking and put survival horror on the forefront of gaming, still being regarded as one of the best franchises. Today I'm going back to the Arklay Mansion to share with you guys my findings. Here is my list for the top 10 secrets and Easter eggs in Resident Evil.
Number 10.
Original cast. First off, I want to cover the infamous cast of the game. There's a common misconception that the live-action actors were the sole characters, but the truth is that each character was played by two different people. One for the live-action scenes, and one for their voices. If you look closely during the cutscenes, you can actually see that some of the lines don't match up 100%. When I lived in Japan, I did modeling and acting work, and basically any projects they need foreigners for will be played by the small talent pool living there. This saves them from having to fly people in or pay large fees to establish talent. This also is the reason why the acting was so bad. Shinji Mikami stated that he specifically regretted casting Inez, the girl who played Jill, due to her lack of acting experience. Apparently, while filming Joseph's death scene, she also was attacked by mosquitoes and became very distressed. As for the other actors, almost all of them have never done any other acting work since, and this remains their only credit, with the exception of Lynn Harris, who voiced Rebecca.
Oh no!
She did 90s voice work for countless video game characters ranging from Tekken to Sonic.
Number 9.
Version differences. As you probably know, there are a lot of different versions of the original Resident Evil, and among them were a few changes. The original version is standard, releasing on the PS1 with no auto-aim or analog support, but we also had the Saturn port, which was interesting. Aside from different character models due to the Saturn's hardware, it also included tick enemies, which were just reskinned hunters. A second tyrant fight in Chris's campaign, and new costumes, as well as a battle mode. Following this was the infamous Director's Cut. I'll mention the music later on, but this version introduced new gameplay modes, costumes, and cutscenes. It also mixed up a lot of different items and events to vary the gameplay a bit for players, as well as adding full analog support and an auto-aim system. There was also a Game Boy port in development that never got very far, but it was commendable of Capcom to attempt it. You can find working builds online if you want to try it for yourself via an emulator though. And lastly, we have the DS version. In my opinion, this is the best version of the game. Completely reworked, this release added puzzles and modes, new costumes, abilities like Quick Turn, Resident Evil 4 style knifing, and it utilizes the two screens to show your map and inventory screen while you play, which is awesome. Plus, you can touch your characters' butts.
Number 8.
Censorship. This game has a very weird censorship history that has confused people for years, and for good reason. Pretty much the only version to be truly uncensored is the DS version. Every time they claimed to have uncensored it in a new version, something else was censored, or vice versa. The black and white is changed to color, but then the severed hand is censored. Or the hand is kept in, but Rebecca being decapitated is changed to her just falling over. It's honestly all over the place.
Number 7.
Unused items. Within the game's files for the original are several unused items. Among these are the Dum Dum rounds, which are an alternate ammo type for the Colt Python, flamethrower fuel, a pickaxe, wood, and a can of oil. It's unknown what some of these were used for, but they were removed in subsequent versions of the game's data files, making them totally inaccessible.
Number 6.
Beta characters. During production, there was a lot of changes, but one of the most interesting ones were the characters. Originally, we had a different cast, including the characters Dewey and Gelzer, who were later replaced with Rebecca and Barry. These two guys seemed a bit more cartoony compared to Chris and Jill, and implied that the game might not have been so serious initially, and maybe had more of an arcade feel. There's a good chance that Dewey might have been repurposed as Kenneth, but Gelzer is nowhere to be seen. Too bad, he could have taught Chris how to punch a boulder or something.
Number 5.
Arrange Mode Rooms. In the director's cut, there is a new Arrange Mode, or alternatively called Advanced Mode. Most people wouldn't realize unless they played them consecutively or side by side, but a lot of the environments were actually upgraded, as seen here. More detail was added, and it seemed that the camera angles were slightly adjusted.
Number 4.
Prototype version. Did you know that Resident Evil had a co-op mode at one point? In 2010, a user by the name of Tyrant found and released a build of the game that dated back to 1995 when the game was very early in development. While this version had the co-op removed, it also had a lot of interesting features. Among these were the ability to change weapons in real time, different camera angles, all zombies wearing white coats, Japanese voices, and a few other minor differences.
Number 3.
Music change. Okay, so I know most people know this, but when I was researching the story, it turned out to be a pretty big scandal. So, for those of you who don't know, there was a very infamous change in music when the director's cut was released. We went from this to this. So everyone knows that the music was changed, but I wanted to know why. So I looked into it and wow. Strap yourselves in. So there was this guy in Japan named Mamoru Samuragochi who was considered a musical prodigy and was even compared to Beethoven. One of the main reasons he was so famous is that he had slowly started losing his hearing and by the age of 35 was basically deaf. Well, with the success of Resident Evil, they were able to hire him to compose music for the game, which was probably a huge selling point for the Japanese market at the time, and he agreed. And then we got the horrible director's cut music. Well, here's the plot twist. He came forward and admitted that he had a ghostwriter do all his music for him for the last 20 years. He himself wasn't a very skilled composer. And then there was an investigation done on whether or not he was actually deaf, since witness accounts claim that he reacted to noises such as knocks at the door or the school bell ringing. Well, his very own ghostwriter came forward and admitted to the media that he wasn't deaf at all and it was all an act. He also had a cane that he didn't need. Apparently he thought being deaf would create a mystique around his composing and get him attention. Well, yeah, it would have if he actually composed his own music.
Number 2.
Hidden audio. Within the game's files were some hidden audio tracks not used in the game.
It's slightly broken, but it's still usable. I'll take it with me.
Among these were some pretty amusing ones, including Chris's voice cracking,
Rebecca!
and Rebecca doing some of the best porn acting you'll ever hear.
Let me try using both at the same time. But I escaped through the other draft hole. Then I came... Ouch! Ouch!
Number 1.
Development. So I know this may not be the most interesting thing, but I had to put it at number 1 because it's a big deal. This game is where it all started for Resident Evil and we can't forget that. Development started in 1993 and took about 3 years to make. During this time, the game went through a lot of changes, including the prototype I mentioned before. The first 6 months was Shinji Mikami working solo, creating concept sketches for enemies and characters, and he wrote over 40 pages of script for it. While everyone credits Sweet Home for the NES being the inspiration, and that is technically true, various works inspired the game over time. Alone in the Dark inspired the static camera mode, The Shining inspired the mansion setting, and interestingly, he cited the 1979 film Zombie as a negative inspiration, claiming he saw so many things he wanted to fix and change about the zombies. Well, we're all glad he did because it led to one of, if not the best zombie-related franchise in the gaming world. And that's it for this video. If there are any other things that I missed about the original Resident Evil, let me know down in the comments. If you like this video, check out my other Resident Evil videos and consider subscribing to my channel. Also, don't forget to check out the community tab where you can vote on future videos. I'm Kai Morgan, and as always, thanks for watching Ink Ribbon.